Okay. So, hello everyone, welcome. I'm Anna Pavlakis from Integrated Soul Healing, and I am here with Ernie Boxall. He is a storyteller from England, and we're going to be talking today about some interesting stories. And
That's
so,
true.
and I'm so excited to have you here and to be able to interview you and to learn from you. And I'd like to first just start by asking, how did you first get into storytelling and realizing that you were a storyteller?
Right. Well, thank you for having me, Anna. And I hope that we can send this out to lots of your people and get them interested in storytelling. Because I first got interested in storytelling when I was about 6 years old. And the very first book I think I was able to read was a book about Kemlo, who was a boy who was born on a space station. And being born on a space station, he could travel out into space with no spacesuit or masks, or so I thought. But that really fired up my imagination because for a long time I was a loner. I used to go along to a riverbank and sit on the riverbank with a brook, just a gentle brook flowing beneath me, and I would wonder where that twig that floated past me went. And in fact, where did the brook lead? Where did the river go? Where did the sea go? And so I think it started from there. And then at school, I was a very prolific writer, even at a very young age, 8 or 9. I had absolutely no concept of figures.
Mm.
Maths baffled me, but I could write. So stories have been a part of my life from way back.
I'll bet you were quite a reader as well, as was
Yes.
I. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I devoured books.
Yeah.
And so at what point, though, later, like, did you really embrace this aspect of
Yeah.
yourself as the storyteller?
I guess it came around when, and this is going to be strange, when I was about 22, Anna,
Mm.
I was the best man at a hooker's wedding, a rugby player. He was a hooker and he was from New Zealand.
So a different type of hooker than the one I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
I thought, oh, this sounds like a very
Yeah.
interesting story.
But we became best friends, and he'd come over to England to marry a girl that he'd met in South Africa. And so he chose me as his best man. And I did for the wedding, I did without thinking what I now try and teach all of my clients to do. And that's called the 4 P's of perfect presentation. I prepared my best man speech. I edited it and then re-prepared it.
Mhm,
And then for the second P, I practiced it so assiduously that I could read it from bullet points.
mhm,
The third P was posture.
mhm.
I was confident to step up, put my shoulders back, and talk to the back of the room. And the fourth P was I performed. And at the end of that best man speech, which was to 140 business owners and their partners, I got a round of applause. So I knew from, or I thought from that time onwards, that this was the one thing I'd found that I was good at.
Mm.
And in that ability to talk to people on all levels has been my saving grace all the way through to my now 70 plus years.
Mhm. Okay. That's wonderful. When you found your thing, the thing
Yeah,
that you do,
yeah.
your thing, it's precious.
And if I
It's
can just
precious.
say, Anna, the thing was, I was a very shy teenager.
Hmm.
And one thing I also talk about is parents being very careful what they say to their children. because one of the things that happened to me was when I was 16, I'd been working in a factory and I hated it. So I went home to my parents and said, I want to go back to college.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing my mother said to me was, well, what do you want to do that for? You'll never make a go of that.
Oh,
Now, see, she was working in a factory herself and she'd been there all her life. So to her way of thinking,
right.
that job was my job for the rest of my life. I just couldn't stop indoors. But now, unfortunately, every time I tried something new,
Mm-hmm.
that little voice whispered, Are
Mm-hmm.
you sure you'll make a go of
Of
this?
course.
And that's why I do tell people to be very careful
Yeah,
what they say to their children.
absolutely. I mean, these things, part of actually the healing work I do is to help
Yes,
undo some of that damage.
absolutely.
Yeah, because it really leaves such a lasting imprint on you and it
Yeah,
colors everything, colors your whole life.
yes.
S- So let's get into some stories if you would
Oh,
like to. We started talking about
yeah,
this when I made a post in my group about remembering past lives.
yeah,
And you said something about you wanted to remember Valhalla.
yes. Well,
And
first of all, Valhalla, let's go with that.
yes.
The second book I remember reading was Norse Gods and Heroes, Odin, Thor, Loki, Freya. And I was fascinated from that moment onwards by Vikings. And I tried to learn as much as I can about them.
Mm,
Let's go way, way forward from my childhood to 1983. I was coaching football in England, and in my group were 9 men, mine boys and men from the Faroe Islands.
oh,
And
maybe explain what those are for people who
uh,
don't know.
the Faroe Islands are if you look on the map, Anna, you've got the Shetland Isles in Scotland
Hmm.
and you've got Iceland.
Right.
And then right in the middle, there's a
Yeah.
very, very tiny dot.
Yep.
They're the Faroe Islands.
And they belong to Scotland, is that
No, they
correct? Or
belong to Denmark, actually.
oh, that's right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So these boys spent 2 weeks with me and then went home. And the following year, the man that ran the soccer school had a letter from them asking me if I would go up there to coach their junior teams. And so I did. I went up to where they lived, a village called Lervik
Mm-hmm.
in the Faroe Islands,
Mm-hmm.
and I spent 6 months there. And then I went back the following year and I spent 6 months with the team that was just over the mountain, a team called Goethe.
Mm.
And then 2016, I was invited back by the younger players. They'd all grown up and they invited me to go back there for 3 weeks. And the first time I got back into that first village in Lerwick and I was walking around, there was a signpost and it pointed to some earthworks.
Yeah.
And the signpost said, This is the site of the first Viking landing in the Faroe Islands.
Wow.
So I was back where the Vikings landed for the first time
Yeah.
in the islands.
Yeah.
And it was all there for me.
Ah, how did you feel?
Oh, man. Well, if I can say as well, Anna, that my youngest daughter had a DNA test, a sample,
Uh-huh.
and it comes back that on my side, we are mainly Latvian and Norwegian.
Ah,
So it looks as if it was going home.
yep. It was. It was. It was your bloodline.
And an interesting story is that those Vikings landed in this, where they set up the village, and they started to farm because there was lots of grass on the hills, the mountains. And then they went off Vikinging. When they got back, the village had been hit by a plague, and
Mm,
most of the women and children had died.
yeah.
So the men got back in their boats sailed off to Ireland and stole a load of Irish women and brought them back as their wives. And so
Oh,
the DNA
uh-huh.
between the Faroe Islands and Ireland is very close.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. And what language do they speak there?
they have two. Most of them speak perfect English, even
Right.
from the ages of 8 or 9.
Hmm.
But they also speak Danish and Faroese.
Faroese. I was wondering they have their
Yeah,
own language.
they
Yeah.
did. In fact, it wasn't until 1936 that the Danes allowed them to speak it.
Ah,
So very,
oh.
very recently.
You know what where the language is derived from? I would imagine from
Yeah,
Norse.
Norse.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of words are pretty much the same in Danish, Swedish, Norwegian.
Hmm. Hmm.
Jeg kan ikke snakke. I can not speak. Jeg kan ikke snakke français. So yeah, a big Norwegian
Mm,
influence.
mm. And you really felt that in you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This village, Anna, is where a mountain comes down and the mountain wraps around to the sea that goes past it. So if you can imagine, this village is built at the bottom of that mountain.
Mm,
And when I was there the first time, the only way you could get to the next village would be to drive or walk all the way round the mountain to the next village, which would have been about 2 miles.
mm.
But now they've driven a tunnel straight through the mountain.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
kind of feels terrible
Yeah.
energetically. Ooh.
And also they put the next island is round round the corner
Mm,
by ferry,
mm,
but they built a tunnel under the sea
mm.
now.
Oh, wow. So when you were there, did you have a sense
Yeah,
of the gods?
yeah,
Did you
yeah.
feel them? Yeah.
If you could see, I'll perhaps send you a picture, Anna. But as you look away from the village out towards the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
one set of mountains is spiked.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of the strait, the water, the other set of mountains is spiked.
Mm-hmm.
And I said from the very first moment, it was as if a giant took a sword and just hacked
Wow.
away at the mountains, both of
Wow.
them. And so when you look out at these mountains that are all points,
Mm-hmm.
the next thing that you come across is Iceland.
Mm.
There's nothing.
Wow. Wow.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they are so friendly,
Oh,
the people.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So how long were you there?
I was there for 2 sets of 6 months, 6 months
Okay.
1 year, 6 months the other.
Okay. And have you ever been back?
Well, I went back in 2016
Uh-huh.
and I love the place. It's
Uh,
it's in my heart.
uh-huh.
I
Yes.
could I'm not sure I could live there, but I could certainly spend a lot of time there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So if you could explore past lives or even genetic memories,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that would be the place.
Well, that place, or do you remember we talked about the castle?
Yes. Yes. I want to get into that and also the other thing we talked about. So yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
about the castle.
So I live in a place called Kenilworth,
Hmm.
which is midway between Stratford upon Avon,
Hmm.
Shakespeare country,
Right?
and Birmingham.
Okay.
So it's a town of about probably 40,000 people, I think.
Hmm.
And it's got a castle that is a ruin.
Hmm.
Where I live, the town of Warwick is not
Oh,
very far away, and they
yeah.
have a castle.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Civil War, Warwick was a parliamentarian castle. Kenilworth was a royalist castle.
Ah.
the parliamentarians won the war, so they destroyed Kenilworth Castle. When I was about 6 or 7 or 8 years old, I remember lying in bed and an internal shiver starting from my ankles coming up the body, and I felt as if there was an attachment going upwards, and I wanted to cut it, but I was
Mm-hmm.
afraid to, in case it never, whatever what happened, never came back. And that happened to me 3 to 4 times as a youngster, and I reacted the same each time. Fast forward to 1998 when I just qualified as a shiatsu practitioner. So I was probably more in tune.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lying in bed and that shiver comes again
Uh,
and the attachment, but this time I cut it and I went upwards through black and came out into a blue sky. And I looked down on a castle.
uh-huh.
It was Kenilworth Castle, but it was whole. And as my spirit came down towards it and the walls were coming rushing up towards me, I put my hands out and I went straight through the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And I hovered above a great hall at the back, the table laden of food, people all around the table dressed in Tudor Elizabethan garb. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a big fire on the left hand side. And if people go to Kenilworth Castle and they go to the back to the Great Hall, there's a fire on the left hand side.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, when the it still astounds me that people don't believe in past lives, but because
right.
there's so much evidence for
Yeah,
it, as you just gave. I
yeah,
mean, that was clearly a
yes,
memory or an experience of a past life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
went through a portal into that past life for a short time.
I believe
But
so.
so that happened through you cutting the cord, which is very interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Like why it was at that point?
No, I mean, I was by that time, what would I have been, 58, 59?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the thinking was if I didn't come back, well, I'd had a good life anyway. But no, it was just, I'd got into Tai Chi,
Right.
I'd qualified as a shiatsu practitioner, and I think my horizons had stretched
Mm,
through. I mean, Tai Chi and shiatsu are both derivatives
yeah.
of Chinese
Yeah. Uh,
Zen.
yeah. Yeah. Well, of
So,
Chinese, the philosophy,
yes,
yeah, it all comes
yeah,
uh, uh, from the Taoists and
yeah,
yeah, all of that. Um, wow, that story really blows my mind
yeah.
because to have an experience like that that's so vivid, not everyone gets an opportunity
No,
to have that kind of an experience.
no.
Um, did it affect how you felt in Kenilworth later,
Oh,
or
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's obvious. My spiritual home is
Mm,
Minnesota
mm,
in America, but in England, Kenilworth is a perhaps I was in Minnesota at one time.
so, I mean, because I'm thinking like you cut the cord,
Yeah.
and whenever a cord comes up to be cut, it's always something toxic that needs to be released.
Oh,
So
I
you
don't know about
released it.
that.
It seems like it freed you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I am. Well, this goes back to being a Viking. I think, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
I am a traveller.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm a single man. I've never been married. I've got 3 daughters by 2 wonderful, wonderful women, but they both left me because I find it very difficult to stay in one place. And I find it really difficult to live with someone.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it had to do with that. I will be, I think, a lifelong and perhaps even a second lifelong traveller.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the other. story that I wanted to get into, which is about what you were saying about Minnesota.
Yeah,
And we were talking about the Native
yeah,
American connection that you have, which I find
yeah.
fascinating. Um, Especially since you don't technically have any Native American blood,
No,
as far as you know.
not as far as I know, but 1964, last year at school,
Mhm,
we were asked if we wanted pen friends, and I
mhm,
wrote to America.
mhm,
Received a really well written letter and replied.
mhm.
And then a few weeks later, got another airmail letter with the picture of a most beautiful girl I'd ever seen in all my life. And we wrote for 4 years. We fell in love by airmail. And being in love from 4,000 miles is not too bad because you never argue.
Exactly.
And then in 1968, I went over to visit her, and it didn't go as well as we thought. So
Oh,
after 3 weeks, we shook hands at the airport, and that was it.
mm,
I tried to contact her, but no reply. Then I went into a gypsy caravan at a fair,
mm,
and the gypsy asked me to cross a palm with silver and close my eyes, and make a wish. And I wished that I could see the girl again.
ah,
And she said that your wish is over the water and it will come true. Well, that obviously rubbish at the time. Yeah, yeah.
right. Well,
So we go forward to 2002, and I'm on the computer, and the American election comes up. And I write 3 or 4 lines, then forget about it. 3 months later, I go back onto the site, and the American election's there. My 4 lines, and I just glance underneath. I was your pen friend 36 years ago. So in 2006, I went over to visit her again,
uh-huh.
and we were talking over the kitchen table, just as we're talking now. And she told me that her best friend was the daughter of a Lakota Sioux chief, and he looked after eagles. Well, I'm fascinated by birds of prey.
Yeah.
So I said to her, "Can I see him? Can I meet him?" She said, "No, he's a very, very private man."
Mhm.
As soon as she said man, the phone rang, and it was the daughter inviting us both to a gathering of the people that weekend. So I
Amazing.
met the chief, listened to his stories, I ate with them, I danced in the prayer circle, I danced
Mm,
in the dance circle with them, and then the daughter came out to the prayer circle with a bowl of lemongrass, sweetgrass. She
mm,
lit and she held the smoke up to the east, the west, the north, the south, the sun, and the earth. And I was in tears. And I hate churches, and in fact, I hate religion really. But I thought that they told me that she was saying thank you for the air, the water, the trees, and the earth. And I thought that would do me. And so I just learnt from there. And then, right towards the end, they started to play the Native American flute.
mm.
And I was fascinated by it. In fact, don't go away.
Uh, oh,
The lady made me
oh,
that.
wow.
She christened me Coyote.
Oh, wonderful. The trickster.
Yeah,
For those of you who don't know, Coyote is the trickster.
that's it.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful, amazing. And this was all in Minnesota.
yes,
In Minnesota, okay,
yeah,
amongst the Lakota. Yeah, I once had the honor of uh, a- attending a concert and a talk by an amazing Lakota
yeah,
um, flute player,
yes.
and Tony Redhouse, who's amazing. I don't know if you know him.
No,
Um, very, it was very interesting hearing about how they live there and the poverty and so
yes,
on, but also the incredible wisdom and fight that they have to preserve their culture. And what a
That's it.
gift you
Yeah.
were given to be able to do that.
Yes.
That's amazing. How long
And
were you there?
I was there in 2006. I was there for 3 weeks.
Oh, well,
And then I went back in 2016,
hmm
and the lady had organised for me to go and be in a sweat lodge. Now there's a
And how was
story.
that?
We were in a field. It was an old Ojibwa land, and they started to build the sweat. And while they were doing that, one of the elders told us stories, Ojibwa stories. And then we went out to the sweat lodge that they'd built, but we had to finish it off.
Ah,
And then,
okay.
as the stones were in the fire, they said to us, right, crawl in. And just before we were about to crawl in, an eagle swooped right over the lodge. It must have been about 20 feet above the lodge. And it just comes straight across the top.
Incredible.
Yeah, so we all
Incredible.
went in, they piled the rocks on, closed the flap, and it was basically, they did ask one question: why are you here?
Hmm.
And it was really just to say, and I said that, you know, I'd lost three daughters through not being a good dad, although they do love me.
Hmm.
And I started to cry, and it was a cleansing cry,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that was it. It was a fabulous. We spent at least an hour
Hmm.
in there, and
You
then we
release a
came
lot
out, and there's a river at the bottom of the field, so we all went and jumped in the river.
bathed in the river.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
Eh,
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time.
Oh, and you and to receive a healing and a gift and
Yeah,
all of that. What a privilege. What a
yeah,
privilege to be able to
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so glad that um you were able to share that story because um the connection I have with Native Americans, as far as I know, I have no Native American
No,
blood, but it when people ask me if I miss the United States, I actually miss Native American culture, which doesn't make any sense
no,
logically,
no.
but I feel it in me, so I
Yes,
totally get that.
you do have the
Yeah,
appearance. Yeah,
yeah.
you look. The one of the ladies that helped arrange the sweat, she was a Ojibwa, and she
Mm,
looked very much like you, facially.
that's that's so interesting. A lot of people have said they look at me and they see a
Yeah.
Native American,
Yes. Yeah.
yet,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Greek, German, French, and Swiss. So,
So,
but
well,
who
funny
knows?
enough, the lady I went to meet, the lady I fell in love with,
Uh-huh,
she found a photo album in
uh-huh,
the attic of her mother's house when her
uh,
mother died. She was cleaning it out, and in the photo album was the picture of her great grandfather
mhm,
who sailed from Sweden to
mm,
America
oh,
to set up a life there.
mm,
So her background was Swedish,
yeah,
but a grandfather, great
yeah,
grandfather, travelled to America.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities, right,
Yes,
for connection in that
yeah.
way. Yeah, yeah.
So, where were you born originally, Anna? What?
In New York City,
Oh, you're not French because
no,
you're in Paris
I
now,
have
aren't
some
you?
French blood. I have some
Right.
French blood, yeah.
And
But
of course,
yeah,
the French trappers were all in Canada and North America, weren't they?
and Greek blood.
Oh, I don't know about
But
that.
I'm a New Yorker, and a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize how many native
Oh, yeah.
peoples are in New York City and in the
Yeah.
New York area. I've been to
Yeah.
two powwows in
Yes.
the New York City area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love to watch the dancing.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah,
And when the young kids go out there and they give it their all, and yeah,
yeah. And
beautiful.
the reverence they have for it,
Yes.
the joy and the reverence
Yes.
and the understanding of the importance of it,
That's right.
it's
It's
very,
not just a dance. No.
yeah, Yeah.
It's more
So do you have any other stories you'd like to share with us before we
going
end for
in this.
today?
What I'm doing now perhaps encapsulates all
Hmm.
of them
Okay. Why don't you tell
because I'm the
us?
ghost guide at one of the most haunted houses in England.
Oh, I'm
There's a
wondering if
place,
you've met a friend of mine. Okay.
yeah,
Tell me more.
there's a place called Tudor World in Stratford upon Avon,
Hmm.
and it was built in 1480. Although
Hmm.
people had lived on the land since 1190, and this house was built in 1480. It was a tavern.
Hmm.
Shakespeare drank there, and it had a thatched roof. But with the hops fermenting in the back room, the roof caught fire and it
Hmm.
took half of Stratford with it. So you've got this part of the building that was built in 1480 at the front,
Hmm.
and then cobbled steps along the side. There's a brick building that was built in 1596, but
Hmm.
the back of the building is back to 1480.
Wow.
So, and there, so you've got the plagues that were in Stratford. You have whatever happened in a tavern
Hmm.
in Stratford.
Yep.
In 1642 was the first battle of the English Civil War, and it took place 10 miles away, the Battle of
Oh.
Edgehill. The parliamentarian officers and troops, some of the troops stayed in that house, and then when the battle started, the wounded officers were brought back there for surgery, and of course many of them died in the house.
Hmm.
There was a young girl called Lucy whose story is known to have been in the house as a thief and pickpocket.
Oh.
8 to 11 years old, very young. And in the fire of 1596, she was caught in the back room and did not escape. When they found her, barely alive, her arms were black, her legs were black. They took her body home
Hmm.
round the corner and she collapsed into a coma.
Hmm.
The people in Tudor times knew little of the coma, so they thought she was dead
Hmm.
and sold her body to the local doctor. Because 2 years earlier, it had been made legal for doctors to be able to do autopsies on freshly dead bodies and not dig them up from the grave. So they laid Lucy on the slab, the knife went in.
Oof.
She, the story is, and this is a story that was told to the priest on the doctor's deathbed as a confession, and she died. And yet, as I tell that story in the dark, women have talked of having rings twisted on their finger.
Oh.
Men have talked of having a hand in their pocket or their coat being tugged. And on 3 occasions downstairs, ladies that have stood on the squares where Lucy was found
Mm.
have both said they saw a white figure on the stairs.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and the thing is, those stories and the stuff that's happened in there to people and also to me doesn't faze me because I've been in the past. I've been, and in 4 years, nothing has ever happened to me. So I
Right.
figure that, they just recognise that I'm there.
Yeah. 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 They're not out to hurt you necessarily.
So
Wow.
it's fascinating to take people through
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes. What fun too.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will afterwards I'm gonna ask you if you know this one friend of mine who loves going on ghost tours in the UK.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Ernie, it has been so wonderful
Yes.
to talk with you today. If people would like to get in touch with you, what would be
Yeah.
the best way? How can
Well,
people get in touch with
on Facebook, it would
you?
be Ernie Boxall,
Hmm.
or there is Storytelling Corner.
Hmm.
Instagram,
Hmm. Hmm.
Ernie Boxall. I'm not quite sure. Perhaps if I send you the links,
Okay, yeah,
Anna.
and I'll post them when I post
Yeah.
the interview.
Yeah. But
Okay.
also on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
there is something called No Story Stagnates. which I think you will be making an appearance in soon,
Uh-huh.
where I interview people of interest and we go through their story from before they were born to where they are now. And so people can go there and they can look at all the people I've interviewed so far, and then given a few weeks, Anna Pavlovsky. Anna Pavlakis.
Pavlakis, yes.
Anna Pavlakis will be there.
Pavlakis. Yes, I will.
And that's brilliant, Anna. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. And yeah, I'm really excited to be doing these interviews. It's something I've done a little bit before, and I'm going to be doing more of them because I think
Yeah.
part of sharing on my page and in my
Yes.
group and everything is about sharing people's stories, sharing
Yeah.
people's gifts, and because we
And if
can
I
learn
can,
so much.
if I can just say, Anna, the one benefit you've got is that you listen. You
Thank
don't
you.
interrupt, or
Yeah.
you sit and you listen, which is a Native American thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's a healer thing too.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. It's the shaman thing. Oh, Ernie, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really looking forward to hearing more stories.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Let's meet in the future, Anna. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.